Today, I'm talking with Lewis, a voice actor who, after being approached by several people at his day job about his voice, decided to dive right into the industry. We are discussing character voices, being a DM in D&D, learning to breathe, and using voice acting as an escape. I hope you enjoy. Who are you, and what got you into voice acting?
Yeah, so my name's Lewis Saunders. My journey into voice acting was incredibly random. Basically, I've only been doing it 4.5 months. I'm super fresh. I work in a restaurant, but it's my day job, and I often have got compliments on my voice. You know, the tone of it and the pitch of it. And from I had this voice from about 11 years old. My voice broke quite early. And I've ignored everyone's advice to use my voice for good. And I was a teacher for a decade. So, I'm used to public speaking, things like that. And yeah, through various change of careers, I ended up in hospitality down the line. And yeah, one day I had four people compliment my voice. It started with some little old dear being like, "Oh, you've got such a beautiful voice. I could listen to it all day." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's lovely. Thank you." And then another guy came in and he was like, "You've got the perfect voice for radio. You should really use it. What you doing here?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, I've heard that before. Give me a job and then I'll do it. That'd be great." But I know that's not how it works. And then a third person came in. I can't remember what they said, but they were equally complimentary. And then the local chiropractor came in, who's, I'd say borderline friend. I know him quite well. And I told him, I said, "Justin, you're the fourth person to tell me this today." And he was like, "Well, do it. Go for it. You have to act on this when you've had so much positivity coming your way." And I was like, "You know what? I can't sit around anymore. I'm quite impulsive anyway." And that night I bought a £35 microphone to turn up the next day. I bought a website domain and just thought I'm going to do it. And I set up a website, recorded some, dodgy samples because £35 mic isn't all that. And I went for it and I set it all up. And then that evening I looked through Reddit because I saw that was a place to, try and get work. And I'd also read that you're not going to get anything for months. So I thought, oh, well, I'm not expecting to get anything. And straight away I got a role helping him go out with his test demo for a game. I got another one, which was actually for a woman to replace AI. But I said, well, if you need a voice, I'm up for it. And he had two women apply, but he liked me most. So he took me on. And that was a nice surprise. And I then spent a month working with him on his color and technology videos. So I thought that was the way I was going to go, would be more explainery stuff and that kind of thing, like, maybe corporate, because my teaching background, that suggests the kind of thing I should be doing. But you should never listen to that because I've been playing D&D since I was 15 and I'm 38 now. So, it's a fair long time playing D&D. And I've always used character voices and that because, it's theatre of the mind. And I never really considered that I was any good at it. But I really enjoyed doing it, as did the players around the table. And in my over a decade in teaching, obviously I read stories to the children and things. So I was a primary school teacher. And that equally was, something they liked. When you hear a story, you want some emphasis behind it. But then I got a role. I joined Casting Call Club because I saw that was, again, a great place to start out, with a lot of people, projects, students, things like that. And the first one I applied for was a Barbie movie with like moving Barbie dolls and, like voiced over from Tales of Eleanor. And it was a winter special. And I was like, this looks like fun. Let's do it. And they went a Gandalf-esque man. So I thought I could probably do that. So I then started with this kind of voice and I got in there. And she loved it so much, I ended up also playing the main male villain. But then from that, I realized that I enjoyed doing character voices. Then I think it was only about a month in, I got my first, what I consider larger role, still a free one, but it was for a game called Fugue's End on Casting Call Club, which is like quite a big community of us now in. Was totally out of the blue. I applied again for a role that I knew I wasn't a fit for, and then I got called in to be a different character because he liked my voice so much. Raguna that runs it. And I thoroughly enjoyed reading as Tellior, this like commanding leader chap.
Mhm.
But he wanted to do a group reading, and I wasn't prepared for that. I'm not a drama student. I was painfully shy as a child. Obviously, I came out my shell in teaching and stuff, but still, the idea of being in a room with a bunch of other actors, I was like, I'm not sure if this is really my thing. And he got talking, and he kept calling me out and pulling me in, saying, "Oh, your voice is brilliant, voice brilliant." Then came to the group read, and he said, "Right, Lewis, you're up first." I was like, "Wait, what?" But I did it. I went for it. I just read the lines, and I barely stammered or anything. And it was a really good experience, and it forced me out my comfort zone at a rapid rate. And after that, I suddenly had this newfound confidence. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to start hitting everything that I'm a fit for and that I enjoy. And for the last 2 weeks, I mean, I'm 4.5 months in, but for the last 2 weeks, I've literally had two or more roles every single day,
Nice.
which has been quite incredible. And I had 9 paid roles this month, and what we on the 15th. So it's going really, really well, and I do a huge variant of things.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
I'm I'm still not sure where I want to be, but I'm really enjoying the process and the journey. And I'm very blessed with the fact I've got quite a unique pitch for my area of my geographical location, because I was told at a young age that my voice is generally my pitch is just found in like Eastern European men or, men of African descent with a bigger bass. And naturally, English, I'm from England, they don't tend to have a pitch like mine. So it is a blessing, and it was very useful in teaching, very useful, when I was younger. And yeah, who would have thought I'd be a voice actor? You told me this 5 months ago. I'd have said, nah, don't be silly.
Might as well. I like that you brought up the character voices because I feel like there's a lot of people who like go about their daily lives like doing that kind of thing. They like to mimic the characters they hear on TV or like they're reading a book and they're like, I bet this is what that would sound like. Even if you don't have like an acting background on doing a stage acting or radio or anything. So what kind of characters have you found that you most relate to or that you really like that come a little bit easier? And then what kind of characters are a challenge, but maybe you want to get better at, try in the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I've already kind of been typecast because I generally get the roles of old men. I can do a variety of older male voices because the pitch suggests age. And also being English and deep voiced, I get cast as villains a lot as well. But strangely, as well, American villains. I can sadly only do a kind of Southern American drawl, though. So I'm either a cowboy or like a gritty, gritty anti-hero type character. And that's where I end up with that, or the Southern American cowboy, that Southern
Yeah.
drawl. But the thing is, I've realized while doing all the different voices that I can achieve much more than I thought I possibly could. Like on my website, I've got a bunch of samples, and I'm in a short film, not was, obviously I'm part of it, but it was called The Mothman, and I got it off Reddit, and it was some guy's animation that's going to be touring, small film festival circuit. And I was originally hired as the police detective in that. And again, that's a very deep, commanding voice. But then I saw he needed an old man or a cultist, and I didn't realize that he meant an older male cultist figure. And I said, well, I'm sure I can help you out. This was a month after I'd recorded the other one. He was still looking because someone dropped out. And I was like, okay, I can help you with that. Just read my samples and pick one. And he said, oh, can you do your scientist voice, your evil scientist, but make it American and make it over the top and kind of theatrical? And I thought, I've never done theatrical before, and I didn't think I could do it. But then I just dived into it, and I ended up creating this new voice that I hadn't had before, which is a bit, like over the top. And it was very uncomfortable at first, and I felt like a total idiot doing it. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and that voice has then got me further roles. Like another huge boost, I would say, in my journey was getting a role with a guy who goes by the name of Haircut, which is quite big in the Skyrim Fallout modding community. And
Okay.
he threw me a bone on because I've been talking to him for a couple of months. I had a small bit part, but that project didn't really pan out. And he was like, I've got a ghoul you could be in Fallout, but I need to know you can do a ghoul voice. And I was like, crap, can I even do a ghoul voice? But then I thought, well, I could do that cultist. So I just made it more like this kind of sounding. And then, yeah, he was like, that's perfect. It's like, that's exactly what we need. And again, that gave me a boost because I thought I am adaptable. You know, I can change a bit. I'll never be a schoolboy or, you know, a woman. That's way out of my range. But, or even someone softly spoken. But I feel that, again, I'm quite blessed in the sense I've got this deeper tone and it can fill a lot of different areas.
Maybe there doesn't have to be that pressure to be able to do everything, but maybe to do the things that you can do well, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, to be honest, you can get a broad enough range. Like, I don't feel limited at all. I know I will never be like an anime, you know, character or like I say, like a schoolboy or whatever, or a lady. But in my head, you know, we can be what we want to be. But I know I'm limited in that. But that doesn't feel like a limitation, if that makes sense. It's just who I am. And I didn't really consider, oh no, I'll never get that role. That's not for me. It's more like, well, that's not for me. It doesn't matter. Because I think, well, someone got that deserved it. Brilliant.
Right.
And I didn't get that thing, but it's not necessarily because I'm bad. It's not necessarily because it's just because it's not right. That's the bottom line. And even if I feel like I'm the best king in the world, you know, whatever, for that role, if someone's got a slightly different voice or a different accent, or even they're in the same ballpark as me and they just do it better, I'm like, well, fair enough. There's plenty more out there.
Yeah. What's your process for auditioning? Where do you go? You mentioned maybe casting call club. How do you pick out a character? How do you pick a project and record, send it in, and know that you did a job that you're proud of?
When I look at the casting call list, I'll be like, oh, that's cool. That's a computer game. Or that's an audio drama that I think I'll fit in. And I scroll down the list. And if there's a character I think I can go for, or one that I maybe am not a best fit for, but then might get recognized for my talent, because that's happened quite a few times now, I'll then be like, okay, I'll try for it. And then I get my whole list up of everything I've favorited that day or the few days before. And I have them open in one like window. And then the other half of my screen is Audacity, because that's why I'm recording, because, you know, I'm technologically simple at the moment. And then I will just literally see the lines, hit the record, say each line maybe 3 times, and then listen to them. If they suck, I delete them, start again. But generally, I'll just go with the best ones of that 3 recording, or I'll do it in 3 different voices straight away and submit it. And that's pretty much all I do. And I've talked to a lot of other voice actors that prepare for a very long time for their auditions. And don't get me wrong, I think that's an amazing approach, because they're getting into character. They're really digging deep to find that role. And they're the kind of people that and that's why I'm never bothered when I don't get a role, because I think, well, that person's probably tried really bloody hard to get it. Whereas I'm not saying I don't try hard, because obviously I'm putting the effort in, I'm getting it. But I think where I always think about stuff, like in terms of D&D, and I am a very free-flowing DM. It's just about jumping into the character there and then. I'm not thinking, oh, actually, I've got an hour to suddenly assess, or half an hour to assess how this, you know, barman's going to be thinking about the world. I'm just like, okay, we're there. Right, I'm this barman. Let's go for it. And, oh, I'm this orc captain. I need to just throw in and think, what is he going to be like? So with auditions, I guess I'm kind of seeing them like D&D characters. And I think my process of auditioning, I said this to my friend the other day, is not too dissimilar to how I played Pokemon as a child. You know, you got to catch them all, except there's a never-ending list. And everyone I catch is a success, and I'll record, be really proud of it, really happy with it, you know, connect with that character and enjoy it, even if it's only a couple of lines. And then I'm like, that's one for the collection, you know, and then I go on to find the next ones. And it's this never-ending adventure. And honestly, it's really changed my life. It's been absolutely amazing. I was diagnosed with, here's a little sob story, get your violin out. I was diagnosed with tinnitus about 5 months ago, but I've been suffering with it for about probably 10 now, maybe 11 months. And, you know, for most people, it's a ringing in the ears that's, you know, high pitch. But for me, it's like a helicopter within my head. And it's a really loud, like, all the time. And honestly, it was driving me completely insane to the point where I was going a bit crazy. And I decided to play white noise because it distracted it, or brown noise rather. But the issue with that is I forget that that's also a form of torture. So I was walking around with brown noise in my ear
Yeah.
24/7 and sleeping with brown noise, waking with brown noise. And I literally think I drove myself insane. But the
Mhm.
positive of this, I've found, coping mechanisms and stuff since. Brilliant. Still sucks, I don't
Mhm.
envy anyone else with it, and I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. But the positive of this is as I descended into madness with my tinnitus, I also discovered that I would be a voice actor. And even on my hardest days after, an 11-hour shift at work, I come home, um, there's been a screaming baby, there's been clattering cutlery, my ears nuts. But I get to be a character, I get to record, I get to have that fun. And then I get someone saying, that made my day. That was brilliant. And it's not even about, I know for a lot of voice actors and a lot of people, success is about attaining new heights, about getting money. There's nothing wrong with that. Everyone wants fame to a degree or cash. We all need cash to survive. But as cheesy as it sounds, like with teaching, like with my artwork, like with anything I've done, even in my job serving a coffee or food to somebody, you know, making other people happy always gives me satisfaction in life. And I feel that is my purpose in life, and not in some saintly way, but just if I've made someone else happy, that makes me happy. It's not
Mhm.
an entirely selfless act. It's also making me feel better as a person. So in making other people happy makes my day easier and it makes their day easier. So why doesn't everybody just do that? But hey, my biggest joy is when I've given someone else something that they run with that realizes their dream. And it doesn't matter really what stage that's at. It could be not that I'm there yet, but it could be a AAA computer game, but that paid a ton of money, or, like a Disney movie that you get a salary off of. But I wouldn't care if it was equally just some 17-year-old that's written a play and I'm just doing a voice for it. Or, I voiced an old Barbie doll. It's fun. It's cute. It's realize their dream. And you can't put a price on that.
How do you think that voice acting might be unique in that way where it might give someone that world, I guess, to escape to, depending on the project? You can see it, you can hear it. Since it's been kind of like that for you, where it's provided that world of creativity outside of work and outside of health things.
It's escapism, isn't it? It's disassociation. It's a bit of escapism. It's no different than watching your favorite film or watching a new film or playing a game you love or playing D&D or reading a good book, listening to music that just takes you away somewhere else. It's just that enrichment. And that's the same if you're the actor doing it. Like if I got to be again, the roles I get are really completely different to each other. But it doesn't matter whether I'm a commanding general, some doddery drunk of an old man, or, something a bit nicer and more heroic that I can't think of off the top of my head. But you, I get to be away in that and embracing some random character for someone else. And the beauty of it is I've been an artist for many years as well. And that, especially the technical side where I'm doing digital 3D design, that requires a lot of brain power. I've had to teach myself it over the last few years, and it's got a nice amount of success. It provides me a nice income. But I always said that, that was the easiest money I've ever earned. But actually, voice acting is even more rewarding and easier because I'm just getting to talk. I'm getting in to enjoy, and as you can tell, I love talking. But it's a form of escapism. That's all I'm getting at. And I get to do that thing. But I think for other people that have their projects, but not only those that have their projects, those that are going to enjoy it, like I'm part of a lot of fan art stuff as well. And for people that have got their little baby, it doesn't matter whether it's original or fan art or anything. They're doing that thing because they love it. And I never once, when I was creating comics and things when I was a teenager, thought, I could get people to voice all of this stuff for free for me. It just wasn't something that I ever thought would be possible. Maybe it wasn't back then, that was many moons ago. And then those people that listen to that stuff, and we get it now. Even with official things, like I said, Disney stuff. We all can associate, well, most of us can associate with Disney films. We've got fond memories of them. TV shows we like. They've enriched our lives, and they've enriched the actors' lives that are in them. We hope, for the most part, they're not just cashing a check. For the most part, they enjoy what they do and they love it. And voice acting is no different. I'm on a very much a lower level compared to that stuff, but I don't think it's dissimilar at all. It doesn't matter if it's free, if it's paid. It doesn't matter the age group, whatever. It's as long as everyone's enjoying it and you've given your all and made it work, that then allows potentially so many people to connect with something and enjoy something. And you've been a small part of that. And as a voice actor, I don't consider my role in most things a large part, because even if you were the lead, there's such a team of people. There's a sound engineer. There's, a lot more going on. If I'm part of a lot of student films, they're animations, some of them involve like 30 people. And I'm just the dude voicing like maybe the main guy. And in a few, I'm the only voice. But you think I'm just a tiny part of that. It took me, an hour to record my lines. It's taken them months to do that artwork, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into their project.
For the world of D&D, do you think it could benefit from having more role playing, more voices, taking on voices of their characters, not just the DM?
I was thrown in very early to be a DM because the guy I was friends with basically just didn't want to be a DM anymore, and he wanted to play. And there was a much older guy who used to go around his sister's house. It was a really bizarre setup, but we went there anyway, and he would do everything by the book. And he was a LARPer and stuff. Nothing against LARPers, that's all cool. But he was really anal about everything. You get the impression he just loved the mathematics. And to me, yeah, there is mathematics in D&D. You're rolling dice and adding them together. But it shouldn't be about that. It's a story. It's about collective storytelling. It's not about power gaming. It's not about breaking the system. It's about going on a journey and helping. When I first started D&D, sorry, going off on tangents again, I spent days and weeks and months planning my stories, planning my journey. And then I realized kind of how pointless that is, because as a good DM, you have to have your key points and then let your players weave wherever they want to go. If they want to go off on a tangent and open a bar and do whatever they like, or if they want to suddenly try and investigate a local legend in the middle of nowhere, so be it. Let them do it. Let them have fun. And then let there be consequences when they come back and they haven't done the right thing. They didn't bother saving that family, or they didn't bother, calling that Baron out on what he did, or that vampire invasion that might be impending. You left it a few months, that's going to bite you. And also what I love is I was really inspired because there's powerful things in D&D. And I think there's a really decent way to show that stuff off. And even when you're low level, just have something big there. It's just a big thing that maybe walks past them, or that they come across, or a character that's incredibly imposing. And, let them pick a fight if they want. But death is very real and it might come. You have to show them signs. But yeah, anyway, if you're not comfy doing voices, that's fine. But at least, try and give it some pizzazz. I didn't think I was a voice actor. I didn't actually think I was that good. But now I am a voice actor. All my mates are like, well, it figures. I'm like, well, you could have told me that 10 years ago. But I think voices help, but it's not just about voices. If you don't want to do voices, that's fine. Not everyone wants to be silly in front of a bunch of people, even your friends. It's a nice balance. But I think it's about enjoying that journey. And everyone, again, rather like voice acting and being part of that team of people, D&D's no different. You all got a role to play, and that shouldn't be about encroaching on other people's joy. So yeah, voices do add to it. That's brilliant. But if you can't do voices, don't stress, because really collaborative storytelling, make it fun, make it a joy. Whatever setting it is, if you've got a particularly dark setting that isn't fun and enjoyable, make it that, but obviously make it something that can be enjoyed.
What about advice for first time voice actors, people wanting to get into the industry?
Well, I've been looking a lot more into acting and voice acting now, because obviously I'm now in that circle, so I probably should. And I'm seeing a lot of more interesting things online. And I think as being in teaching, being in hospitality, one thing I am seeing a lot is that my generation and lower, you know, we all are, I'd say, more in touch with our broken selves, is a more poetic way to put it, I think. Fact is, it's not that we're necessarily more in touch. We just speak about it more. And that's both a blessing and a curse. Every single person on this planet is broken. And the older you get, the more broken you become. You know, everyone has mental health issues. I don't care if you say you don't, you do somewhere. We've all got demons. We've all had bad experiences. We're all bleeding in one way or another. But that's what makes you you. You know, that's the beauty of being human. And as hard as it is, you have to love yourself for that part of you as well. What I hear a lot from the younger generations is about crippling anxiety, is about their mental, I wouldn't even say issues, blessings, curses, whatever you want to say. Don't let it hold you back. Don't let it put you in a box, you know, because the painful thing is I talk to a lot of people in every walk of life that are held back by their anxiety, by overthinking, by struggling. And that's totally human. That's totally normal. And like I say, I overthink all the time about everything. But in terms of voice acting, in terms of what I do, I try not to. I just throw myself in deep. And I think I often see things on Reddit. In fact, every day there's a post like it that says, I'm thinking about getting into voice acting. How can I dip my toe in the water? You can't. Dive in. Just launch yourself into it. Buy a microphone. Um, don't necessarily make a website like I did if you don't want to go that far. That was a bit nuts, but you know, I did it and it worked. But buy a microphone, throw yourself on Casting Call Club. And even if you don't want to do that, you don't want to put yourself out there. I didn't think I was going to get roles like I am. In all my reading, it was like you'll get one role a month, maybe two, you know, something like that. Yeah, but I've done something like 700 auditions, you know, so they come through. But um, yeah, create yourself a little project. You know, voice acting is no different than drawing a comic, than making anything, you know, than crochet, whatever. It's a creative experience. If you don't want to write stuff, you don't feel you're a writer, that's also okay. If you just want to speak, find something you like, read it, put voices on it, record it, rehearse, practice. Because I've learned, like anything, granted, I'm an orator, I've been speaking publicly since I was a teenager, but your lungs are a muscle, your throat's a muscle. You know, there are techniques you can learn. I take it all for granted because, you know, it comes more naturally to me. I haven't done it for years without realizing I was training myself. But it's all a muscle. It's no different than working out at the gym or, you know, being good at piano, anything, you know, making pottery. It's a creative process, but it's also a physical process. You will learn muscle memory. You will learn your throat and mouth will adapt to those sounds, you know, and there's a real beauty in that. And I've definitely found through this experience that I'm breathing differently now than what I did my whole life. I learned I was breathing wrong. It's like, how's that even possible? It's breathing. How was I breathing wrong? But yeah, we all breathe wrong. We're supposed to breathe down into our gut rather than up into our chest. It's kind of, you know, hard to explain, but look it up. You'll benefit from it, even if you don't want to voice act. It's worth doing.
What is next for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I did, like I said, I didn't think I was going to get roles. This was my previous point actually as well. So I started my own little audio drama because I thought, oh, I'll do it. It'll be fun. A one-man band it. And then my friend who's a sound engineer, I agreed to rope in. So we're doing it together. But so at some point I'd like to release that just on the side. But the fact is I just haven't had time, you know, because I've had a lot more roles than I thought I'd get. So that's great. That's sitting on the back burner. I really want to, of course, keep going with this. Backstage, I think I'm going to hit as soon as my products, more projects release, which is a little more into the corporate world, but I'd like to give it a try. Ideally, I want to build as big a portfolio as I can in as much ways as possible. So, you know, you get taken more seriously. I'm hoping 2027, maybe I'll get an agent. But again, there's a lot of stages to that. You know, there's headshots, there's demo reels, there's actually having a decent portfolio. And regretfully for that, that's just patience. You have to wait until these things get released. You know, creatives work at their own paces. And a lot of the projects that I'm incredibly proud of Some of them I can't even talk about because of NDAs and stuff, but they will be coming out further down the line.
Nice.
Some of them in 2028. So
Yeah.
that's a long old wait.
There's
But
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's my goal anyway. And it is frustrating because I like to get stuff done. And as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate and unrelenting with that passion. I enjoy it. I'm going to keep enjoying it. And one thing I haven't said, which is the most beautiful thing I think about voice acting, maybe particularly Casting Call Club, is all but about two people I've had interactions with, and this is out of hundreds, is they've been amazing. They've been absolutely lovely people, really nice creatives. It reminds me of doing the Comic Cons when I was younger and meeting other creatives, artists. Nearly everybody's absolutely lovely. And I think that's a really crucial thing is if you're starting out, don't get put off by the more corporate side of it and the corporate world, because everything I was reading on Reddit was all the advice was from seasoned professionals and people that read adverts and stuff, and that's not necessarily the world that you're going to be part of, that you want to be part of, or maybe it will be part of your world, but not yet. If you're starting out, start with stuff like Casting Call Club, Reddit jobs, fun things, and if you have a gut feeling that it's not for you, just say, look, guys, I don't think this is for me. There's no harm in that. And go with stuff that you're really going to enjoy, but you won't know until you try.
Thank you so much.
And
Okay,
have a
we'll see
lovely
you.
day.
You
Thank
too.
you. Bye.